When you're tens of thousands of feet in the air, there isn't much you can do to get away when the job gets frustrating. We see flight attendants doing their job, but we only see a small percentage of what actually goes on. Here are some secrets of flight attendants, finally revealed. Oh, why hey there folks! Do you love watching our videos, but are you looking for a more ad-free browsing experience? Take your video viewing to the next level and sign up for the Premium Network. You'll get the first peek at the newest content from not only the richest, but Screen Rant, The Taco, The Sportster, The Things, and many more. Thousands of your favorite videos in one place is a no-brainer. Click here to be the first in line for the premium. Before we fasten our seatbelts and close the cabin door, join our flight crew by subscribing to our channel. Just click on that red subscribe button and get to know the moment we post a new video by clicking on that gray bell. Cockpit action. So, we've all heard of the fact that pilots are likely sleeping during your flight, and that's all thanks to autopilot. While it can be disturbing, it's not uncommon. But do you know what else is happening in the cockpit? Well, the pilot and the co-pilot are served their food separately, and they are not allowed to share food. This is to help prevent food poisoning, and if one meal is compromised, you still have one pilot to make sure the plane lands safely. By the way, you know takeoff and landing are the most dangerous parts of the flight? Actually, you might. What else is happening in that little space? According to flight attendant Mandy Smith, who was a flight attendant for Virgin Atlantic Airways, she had a little bit of extra fun with her pilot boyfriend. Luckily, this was in a two-seat Cessna plane, not a commercial flight. While the plane was in the air, Smith unbuckled her seatbelt and joined the Mile High Club. And yes, the flight made it to its destination safely. You might think Smith's story is a rare occurrence. Apparently, there is a slew of pilots and flight attendants having some fun in the bedroom, even the married ones. They see all. One could say that flight attendants are the eyes and the ears of the pilots. They are in charge of making sure we're completely comfortable, but also following the rules. This means they are ready to pounce if they notice something is amiss, and they do it for the sake of making sure we arrive at our destinations alive. This means that flight attendants are trained to notice even the tiniest detail of when something doesn't seem quite right. And trust us, these flight attendants have seen it all. For example, they are specially trained to find victims of human trafficking, which is pretty remarkable. If you decide you want to give yourself some self-love under the blanket during an overnight flight, they know what you're doing. If you and your partner decide you want to join the Mile High Club, they know what's up. In short, you're not being slick. However, unless you're jeopardizing the safety of the flight, you might not get anything said to you. Yet, if you're obnoxious enough, you can get in trouble for anything. So if you're wanting to turn on your phone or do other things under that blanket, be polite to your flight attendant so that they don't have a reason to check up on you. Lightning. While flying, you may have encountered a storm during your trip. We know what lightning does when it strikes the ground, so what happens when it strikes an airplane? You might think that it could shut all the electricity down or shoot a hole through the plane. If you've ever been in a plane when getting struck by lightning, you probably heard a loud bang and saw a white glow. But you can rest easy because planes are actually designed to take the hit of a lightning bolt. The plane instead acts as a conductor and the lightning is redirected to the wings. Yes, it can be rather alarming to have lightning hitting your plane, but it's completely normal and the plane is prepared for it. It's extremely rare that lightning causes any physical damage to the plane. Thanks to the last few decades of aerospace engineering, a lightning strike is nothing to be afraid of. In fact, even if there was some damage, the plane will still be able to land safely. Yes, thunder and lightning can sometimes cause some turbulence, but it won't be the lightning that gets you hurt. Shake it up. For some people, one of the scarier aspects of flying is turbulence. There is nothing more disturbing than being in a plane 35,000 feet in the air and having it shake. While some may think they've experienced extreme turbulence, the event is actually pretty rare. Since 1980, only 3 people have lost their lives from turbulence, and it was because 2 of them weren't wearing their seatbelt. While the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, has recorded 300 injuries from turbulence since 1980, 2/3 of those injuries were actually flight attendants getting hurt. You're more likely to get injured from choppy luggage. On that note, flight attendants actually get hurt the most during turbulence because they are up and walking around making sure people are sitting as quickly as possible. There's a reason why they tell you to sit down, even if you're not in your seat. Bouncing around in a plane with your seatbelt on is scary enough, but can you imagine running up and down the aisles making sure other people are safe? Yeah, they don't get paid enough to deal with your shenanigans because you don't want to listen to the fasten your seatbelt sign. Lock it up. Flying means that the only lock you really need to worry about is the cabin door. Wait, what does that mean? Well, as travelers, we lock up our suitcases before we check them. But that doesn't mean your bag stays locked, as the TSA will open your bag if they need to look inside. Also, if you pack anything that can vibrate, it's best to take the batteries out when you pack it. This is because if any vibration goes off while the baggage handler is holding your bag, they will have to call their boss and it turns into a mess. It seems that your privacy is pretty vulnerable even when you're in the lavatory. According to some flight attendants, you can actually unlock the lavatory from the outside. There is a locking mechanism underneath the no smoking plate. Just lift up the flap and you'll see that you can slide the locking bolt. Granted, you probably shouldn't do this while someone is doing their business, no matter how impatient you get. But you know what that means? If you're doing any shady business in the bathroom, the flight attendant can get in pretty quickly, not to mention way too easily. Now that the fasten seatbelt sign is off and you're free to move about the cabin, we have a quiz for you. Which airport was the busiest hub in the world in 2016? You'll have to wait until the end of the flight to find out, but for now, the seatbelt sign is back on, so let's get you back in your seat. Cell phone angst. While using cell phones during a flight is typically a no-no unless it's in airplane mode, flight attendants absolutely hate your cell phone. When the FAA allowed the usage of cell phones during takeoff and landing, the flight attendant union actually took the case to court. Why? When they're doing their safety demonstrations, if passengers are allowed to use their cell phones during this time, they are not paying attention. So in the event a disaster happens, the passengers won't know what they're supposed to be doing. But ironically, it has been reported that after flight attendants have told their passengers to turn off their phones, they reach for theirs and start texting. So if anyone tells you to turn off your phone because it will mess with the plane's signals, follow the rules because they're the rules. But now you can say you know the real reason behind the rule, at least when it comes to takeoff and landing. So take that knowledge as a feather in your cap. You'll still want your phone in flight mode during the flight so the cockpit doesn't experience any interference and can get the info that they need. Evil Diet Coke. One of the perks of flying is getting complimentary beverages, even if they do taste a bit different up in the air. Altitude can change the anatomy of a soda rather quickly, and it can be quite bothersome for the flight attendant. For example, Diet Coke is one of the most popular sugar-free beverages out there. Yeah, there are studies claiming that Diet Coke is actually worse for you than regular Coke, but that hasn't deterred people from reaching for the drink. This is especially true on airplanes. In fact, if you ask a flight attendant what they think about Diet Coke, they might shudder and sit in a fetal position in the corner. What's so bad about Diet Coke? It's very fizzy at 35,000 feet, and it takes longer to pour. According to one flight attendant, they could serve 3 passengers in the time it takes to pour a cup of Diet Coke. This is why sometimes you'll see passengers with a can along with the cup. If a flight attendant is running on a fixed schedule, then having to take extra time to pour a beverage can be disastrous, especially if it is one of the last drink trips before the flight lands. Body type. Think you have what it takes to be a flight attendant in the 1960s? When Pan Am first started, flight attendants had to be women who weren't married nor had children. They had to be at least 5'2" and weigh no more than 130 pounds. Wait, is this a magazine shoot? No, just some extreme rules. Most flight attendants at that time only worked for about 18 months before leaving the job. In the 1970s, those standards changed. Today, there is quite a bit more diversity when it comes to hiring flight attendants thanks to unions and civil rights movements. Flight attendants these days have to have annual training, and as long as they can do the job, they're allowed to fly. But some of the rules are still in place. Flight attendants can't require a seatbelt extension for their jump seat, and they have to be able to fit through the emergency exit window. Also, they have to be tall enough to reach the overhead bin, but not so tall that they keep bumping their heads. Technically, these are practical rules and make sense in order for the flight attendants to do their job properly. Desperate times. When danger strikes, what do you do to make sure that you stay alive? Sometimes you have to do something desperate in order to survive. In July 2017, Joseph D. Hudick IV was flying to Beijing on a Delta flight when he pretty much lost his mind. He was flying first class on a dependent pass because he is the son of a Delta employee. He enjoyed a beer and then went to the bathroom about 1 hour into the flight. After he came out of the bathroom, all hell broke loose. Hudick lunged forward towards the right exit door of the plane and grabbed the handle, trying to open it. He managed to get the handle halfway up before 2 flight attendants intervened. Hudick pushed both of them away and then punched the crew and other passengers in the face who tried to stop him. A flight attendant then grabbed 2 bottles of wine and hit Hudick with both of them. With one of the bottles breaking, Hudick was eventually subdued and he was pinned to the floor and handcuffed with zip ties as the plane landed in Seattle. Hudick ended up getting arrested and a flight attendant was hospitalized for severe facial injuries. In short, flight attendants put up with a lot. Working hard. Even though they travel all over the world, flight attendants are still able to have hobbies and other passions. It can be easy to just see a flight attendant and not think about what they do when they're not in the air. But there is a misconception that female flight attendants are prissy, fragile, and aren't physically strong. Well, the flight attendant you're about to meet is quite different. When Ayme de Oliveira isn't at work, she is working out and becoming one of the most successful weightlifting competitors in the world. Originally from Essex, Oliveira normally keeps her muscles hidden. But when she's doing safety demonstrations, her bulging muscles will pop out and say hello. When that happens, she'll get asked if she weight trains, which of course she does. Each day, Oliveira spends about 2.5 hours at the gym, and she'll eat 5 meals a day while flying. She also doesn't focus too much on her weight because muscle weighs more than fat. As if she's not busy enough, Oliveira is also a mom and is raising a daughter. Between work, the gym, and her daughter, she doesn't have much time for much else. Which airport was the busiest hub in the world in 2016? That would be the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport in Atlanta, Georgia. This airport saw over 104 million passengers in just a year. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to keep that tray table up and listen to your flight attendants. Who knows, you might even get a mid-air perk. If you're looking for some in-flight entertainment, check out some of our other videos and be sure to click on that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.